Tonight we are looking at 3 horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. In Kentucky, a slab that slept 10,000 years moves a hand's width. In Ukraine, the longest maze on Earth stops agreeing with a man's notebook. And in Mexico, a rope tells its last story 300 meters up. Each story starts with confidence and ends in chaos. As always, viewer discretion is advised. This is Cavern Depths. 3 real caves. 3 stories that went wrong. The first one begins now. On April 12, 2026, Caleb and Nathan Reeves walked into Mammoth Cave, the longest cave on Earth, more than 680 kilometers of dark limestone stacked in quiet levels under the Kentucky hills. The tourist trails are lit and railed. The survey leads are neither. The brothers were surveying an unmapped side lead off the lower levels, a 2-day permit they had waited a year for. 8 hours in through the 12-degree cold, map the lead, 8 hours out. Caleb was 31, the older brother, a surveyor who had mapped caves in 4 states over 10 years, and still carried the compass their grandfather bought him at 14. Nathan was 29, the stronger caver of the two, the one who had promised his wife this was the last trip before the baby came. Their habit was the call-out sheet, route, turnaround, and the hour the rangers should worry, filed on every trip. A cave this long, Caleb liked to say, does not need to be deep to make you unreachable. The lead ran through a breakdown field, house-sized slabs that peeled off the ceiling and stacked where they fell. What they didn't know, the winter's record rain had been working under one of them, washing out the clay it had rested on for centuries. The first hours ran clean, boots scraping breakdown, the survey laser clicking station to station, water dripping somewhere below the floor. Nothing went wrong on the way in, because on the way in they crossed the slab the way a bird lands on a wire, light and brief. By early afternoon they were 4 hours from the entrance, on schedule, 60 meters below the hills. What they didn't know, the crossing they had already used once was resting on wet clay, and it had already moved a centimeter that morning. On the way back across the breakdown, that is when the floor failed, because the slab under Nathan rolled a hand's width on its softened clay bed, and a hand's width of rolling limestone weighs more than a car. It caught his left ankle in a closing seam and held it. He did not scream. He said his brother's name once, very evenly, the way people do when the worst thing has already happened and panic has not caught up yet. Here is what you need to understand about breakdown. It is not falling rock. It is furniture that outweighs a house, and it moves at most once in a lifetime. The danger is not being under it. The danger is being between 2 pieces when one of them remembers it can still move. A caver reads the slab under his boots. The rain reads the clay under the slab. Panic lives beside a brother you cannot free. The seam had his ankle. He was trapped. The slab was done moving. 4 of the call-out clock's 6 remaining hours were the crawl-out. Because this is the arithmetic of a pinned caver in a cold cave. The rock pulls heat out of a trapped leg hour after hour, and shock arrives quietly, like the cold's younger brother. Watch 2 brothers do the hardest right things in the dark. First, they did not pry at the slab. A bar under a rolled slab can roll it again, and the seam that held an ankle could hold a chest. Second, they split their gear by the call-out sheet's logic. Every warm layer, both stoves, and 3 of the 4 lights stayed with Nathan. The map, 1 light, and the fastest pair of legs in the family went toward the entrance. Put yourself in that crawl for 1 minute of it. 4 hours of breakdown in stoopway alone, 1 light, your brother's voice getting smaller behind you, and a promise you have no power to keep echoing ahead of you. Caleb reached the entrance in 3 hours and 40 minutes, tore the call-out sheet off the ranger station door, and the machine it described started turning. Cave rescue paged, a medic caver, a rigging team, hydraulic shims. They reached Nathan 9 hours after the slab moved, warm, talking, both stoves still burning. The shims lifted the seam 11 millimeters. That was enough. The rescue report recorded a crush injury to the ankle, a 9-hour extraction of a caver trapped by shifted breakdown, 41 rescuers underground, and 2 brothers recovered walking into the same ambulance, one of them on a stretcher, arguing about whose survey book had the better notes. The longest cave on Earth added the side lead to its map that summer, with a note about wet clay under the breakdown. A cave this long does not need to be deep to make you unreachable, Caleb still says. So what saved the trip? The sheet on the ranger station door, the gear that stayed, and the brother who crossed last. You're watching Cavern Depths, and this is the second story of the night. On March 3rd, 2026, Paul Candell climbed down into Optymistychna, the longest gypsum cave on Earth, more than 260 kilometers of passage folded under one flat Ukrainian field. The cave is barely 20 meters deep. It is also a maze with 260 kilometers of walls. He was a guest surveyor with the local club, working a resurvey grid in the western labyrinth. 6 hours in the cold, dry dark, then out to a hot dinner at the field house. Paul was 40, a surveyor from Pennsylvania who had mapped mazes on both sides of the Atlantic for 15 years, and who mailed his daughter a postcard from every cave country he worked in. His habit was the junction log. Every branch he passed written down in a waterproof notebook, number, arrow, and time on every trip. A maze, the Ternopil cavers like to say, does not attack you. It just stops agreeing with your memory. He carried 3 lights and 40 hours of battery life across them, the club standard. What he didn't know, the junction chain he planned to follow home had a twin, 1 gallery north, identical down to a triangular block on the left at head height. The survey day ran clean, the laser clicking, gypsum crystals crackling underfoot like frost, his pencil scraping columns of numbers. Nothing went wrong at the stations, because at the stations, he was exactly where the notebook said he was. He packed up at 6 in the evening, on schedule, 90 minutes of easy junctions from the entrance. What he didn't know, he was about to make the first left turn 1 gallery too early. 40 minutes into the walkout, that is when the route failed, because the junction stopped matching his notebook, and the triangular block he trusted was the twin, not the marker. He walked his back trail twice. The numbers disagreed both times. In a linear cave, that is an inconvenience. In 260 kilometers of identical gypsum corridors, it is the whole emergency. Here is what you need to understand about a maze cave. Nothing in it is trying to hurt you, and that is the trap. No water is rising, no rock is falling, and so a lost caver keeps walking, and every hour of walking multiplies the square kilometers a search has to comb. A caver trusts the marks on the wall. The maze prints its own copies. Panic lives in corridors that all agree with each other. The notebook had stopped helping. He was trapped. The maze had him. His call-out was 12 hours away. The batteries were the only clock that mattered. Because this is the arithmetic of a lost caver. 40 hours of battery life is 20 if you burn 2 lamps, and a search of the western labyrinth, the club knew from drills, needs 30 hours to reach every gallery. Watch a surveyor do the hardest right thing in a maze. He stopped. He picked a junction with airflow, marked it his, and sat down in the dark. 1 lamp burning at its lowest setting, then no lamp at all, 10 minutes in every hour. He wrote the hours into the notebook to keep his head level, and blew 3 whistle blasts into the dark at every half hour, and heard the gypsum eat the sound. By hour 10, the cold of the floor had worked into his hips. By hour 20, the whistle intervals were the only calendar he had. Past midnight of the second night, the second lamp died, right on schedule, and he logged it like a survey station. Put yourself at that junction for 1 minute of it. Total darkness you have chosen on purpose, a whistle going unanswered for the 14th time, and the arithmetic of how many corridors 18 people can walk before your batteries run out. The call-out tripped at midnight when he missed the fieldhouse dinner. 18 club cavers started combing the western labyrinth in pairs at 2 in the morning, sweeping junction by junction, whistling as they went. At 1 in the afternoon, 31 hours after his wrong turn, a search pair heard 3 faint blasts answer their whistle. He was sitting at his marked junction, notebook in hand, on his last third of battery, 2 galleries from where the twin had fooled him. The club report recorded a caver lost and trapped by a twin junction for 31 hours, recovered unhurt on his own marked corner, and one sentence the Ternopil cavers still quote: "He stopped early, so we found him early." The longest gypsum cave on Earth got 2 new paint marks that spring, one on the true junction and one on its twin. A maze does not attack you, it just stops agreeing with your memory. So what do you carry for that? A notebook the maze cannot argue with, and the discipline to sit still while your own light dies. You're watching Cavern Depths, and tonight's final story is the one they still talk about. On November 8th, 2025, Dana Whitfield stepped over the rim of Sótano de las Golondrinas, one of the deepest open pits on Earth, a warm stone shaft you could lower a skyscraper into. The rope run is 330 meters. It hangs free of the wall for almost all of them. She was there with a small team for a 2-day trip. Rig the pit, descend at dawn with the Swifts, photograph the floor, and be out before the birds came home. Dana was 43, a vertical caver from Tennessee who had logged more than 1,000 pit descents in 20 years, and who called her mother from the rim before every big one. Her habit was the rope log. Every rope she owned had a written history, each descent, each wash, each nick. A rope, Dana told her students, is a diary. The day you stop reading it is the day it stops telling you things. The team rigged the classic line with a fresh rope and 2 rebelays at the rim. What they didn't know, below the second rebelay, the rope crossed a shoulder of rock the guidebooks call polished, and this season a flake had split there, leaving an edge the width of a coin. The descent ran like a postcard, Swifts roaring past in green light, the rope hissing through descenders, boots swinging over a floor still 10 minutes away. Nothing went wrong on the way down, because on the way down the rope barely kissed the edge. They spent 4 hours on the floor, on schedule, photographing a jungle that grows where no jungle should. What they didn't know, every gust that swung the rope that morning had been drawing it across the coin-width edge, one soft stroke at a time. Dana went first on the climb out, and at 240 meters, that is when the rope failed her trust, because her light caught the sheath a body length above her jammers, and the sheath was open, white core showing through a fist of fur. She stopped climbing. She hung 90 meters below the rim, 3 teammates on the floor far beneath her, and for 4 minutes she read the wound the way she had read ropes for 20 years. The wind gusted. The rope swung a hand's width and came back. Somewhere above her jammers, fiber by fiber, the diary was still being written. Here is what you need to understand about a caving rope. The color on the outside is not the strength. The strength is the white core, and the sheath is its skin. And a rope that has lost its skin on an edge is a patient with the bleeding hidden inside. A caver reads the rope in her hands. The pit had been reading it all day. Panic lives on a wounded rope in open space. The core was showing. She was stuck below the damage. The radio was on the floor. The rim was 90 meters of question mark away. Because this is the arithmetic of a cut sheath on a free hang. 11 of 16 core strands is a rope, and 9 might be. And every meter climbed past the wound loads it again with 180 pounds of caver and gear. Watch a professional do everything right above a wound in her rope. She rested. She breathed. She passed the damage with her jammers wide, moving like syrup, keeping her bounce out of the system. And 40 meters from the rim, in a gust the Swifts rode and the rope answered. The last strands of the wound met the edge one more time. Put yourself on the floor of that pit for 1 minute of it. A rope end hissing down out of the green light, a name shouted 3 times into a shaft that eats sound, and a silence with 300 meters of stone standing in it. The team's second rope went up with the strongest climber on it, rigged clear of the broken line's path. It took 4 hours to reach the rim and raise the alarm, and most of a night, past midnight, for the recovery team to rig, descend, and bring Dana Whitfield home. The inquest recorded a rope that died at a single coin-width edge, 40 meters from daylight, and ruled the fall unsurvivable. Her rope log was in her pack, complete to that morning. The last entry reading, "New rope, first descent, edge at rebelay 2 bears watching." One of the deepest open pits on Earth still fills with swifts every evening, a river of birds pouring past the place where the rope sang. A rope is a diary, Dana still says in every rigging class her students teach now. She had read hers to the last page. The pit wrote one line more. So what remains at the rim? The recovery report, closed at 40 meters from daylight. A plaque above the pit where she died. And a rule. At Golondrinas, every rope gets a sleeve at the second rebelay, and nobody climbs first past an edge the wind owns.